So my name is Tom Brukner, and I have the pleasure to be the first speaker today. I came from Brno and from a company called Phonexia that you probably never heard of. Who here heard of it? So you will probably hear of it in the future because we are focused on voice biometrics and understanding what people say and who is speaking of that. So that's what we do, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell you something about improving your team from within. With my notes. Oh, yeah. So, first question is, why do we work in teams? Raise of hands, who here has a team that they manage, that is a team leader or has some people who are reporting to them? Can you raise your hand, please? Okay. Who is also part of some team? That means there are other people that closely coordinate with you. Can you raise your hand, please? Awesome. So what do you like about it? Why do you like working at teams?
Diversity.
Diversity?
And some strongness, somehow different ways of different people, and all together they bring the target in time.
Yes.
Nobody can do that alone.
Yeah, that's true. That there is a limit of how far you can go alone, and that other people can push you forward. So that's really that's one of the great benefits. Any other benefits that you like about working with your coworkers?
Some social relationships.
Social relationships, yes. What I also like the most probably about our team is that we are able to share our responsibility for the work that's being delivered. So it's not just you who's having problems come to them, but there are other people who help you spread the load on you and help you get to the finish line and make the customers happy. So this is something like why we should be working with teams, because if we do it right, it's beneficial for us. However, we don't really do it always right. Can I ask who is working in the IT industry here? Just so that I know how many odd jokes I can make. Okay. So when I was starting in the university, I have a computer science degree. We were told that what's great about programming is that you can always try it out. You open up your editor, you write some code, you run it, you see the result, and if it's wrong, you come back to it and you correct it, and you do this again and again and again, sometimes over a couple of hours, sometimes over a couple of days, and you hopefully write down enough code that it works in the end as you wish. They also told us that if everything goes wrong, you can basically always shut it down, start it up again, and you can start fresh. What I found out the hard way is that you can't really turn people off and on again. That you don't always get second chances with people. That sometimes that when you do something or you tell something to them, they might not be so happy to give you another chance. And that there is so many ways that you can do wrong that people will just not give you another chance. Fortunately, there is not that many of them. Also, many times you can get back if you know what you're doing, if you're not pressing them forward into situations they don't like. But what I found out is that while we get a lot of education when it comes to our background, our hard skills, we don't really get that much information about how to work with other people. And that's why I think that this was the idea of this talk, is to give you some ideas on how to improve working with the people that you know in your environment or at your work. So what I'll do is to give you several tips. At the beginning of each tip, I will ask you to try to imagine a certain person, because you will probably like someone with such characteristics in your workplace or some groups that you attend or among your friends. I will also tell a story about someone that I know, and to give you an example. I will then talk about some concepts of human behavior that arises when we coordinate together. And I will also give you a way to do something about the situation, something that you can do to help your relationship and help that person go further. There is one disclaimer that all the stories that I will tell you are real, but I've changed the names. Also, you will find out that I've done it in order to remember them as they are alphabetical. But otherwise, all the stories are real. I'd like to start with the first story. And that is, I'd like you to imagine somebody who you don't trust at work. Somebody who would you rather not work with. Because you don't know what they're going to do next. You don't know and that if you are forced to working with them, you will feel like, no, not this guy. In my experience, or in my life story, this guy was Adam. I was changing teams, and this guy was the black sheep of the team. Nobody was talking to him. Whatever he did, everybody immediately said that they are absolutely wrong, that we should never, ever do it this way. And that he was despised across the board. And actually, it didn't work, as you can probably imagine. That since we were pushing him further and further to do something that, to improve, to do it differently because we didn't like it, he kept pushing back, he kept defending himself. Only later I found out that there is a concept that's called circle of safety by Simon Sinek. Has anyone heard of it before? He basically states that we will always be protecting ourselves, and what we can do as co-workers, our team members, is to extend the protection not from each other, but towards other people. So what we were doing wrong was that since we were pushing him to do something differently, he was just protecting himself all the time. But if we didn't trust him and he didn't trust us, he would never open up, he would never start trusting, and he would never actually change. There are several methods to approach this. One of them that I really like is to really just to start to listen to these people. Because what happens is that when we usually listen, like when this guy would say, yeah, I don't know how to do it, or I'm not really sure that this is the way, we would just reply to him, you do it this way, you do it that way, you do it that way. And that really didn't go us any further. It just made it more defensive, like, okay, so next time I will rather not tell anything. So a better way to do it is just to listen, not to reply, but listen to understand. When you do this, when you actually shut your mouth, I know it's difficult, especially for me, and you just try to understand what the person is saying, you will find out later on that there might be things that you are not aware of. That there are things that if you understand, that they will actually start trusting you. So with Adam, the situation was that not only did he have a hell at work, so he was absolutely overprotective, he also was basically at a point of his career where he didn't know what to do next, but had a mortgage on his head, so he couldn't just quit and figure it out. So he was in a way in a corner and didn't know what to do next. So if you find out somebody you don't trust, rather than pushing them forward to do something, it's sometimes better to take a step back and start to listen and try to be more empathetic about what's their situation by not listening to reply, but listening to understand. Second story will be about Bob. I'd like you to imagine somebody who is shy at work. Somebody who doesn't talk much or is kind of private, but are doing their work well. Someone who will contribute to the team in a way that if you give him or her task, they will finish it, but they will not be so much for the discussion. Do you have somebody in your head? Well, in my case, Bob was a somewhat mechanical programmer. He is really great. He's really great developer. He really gets stuff working, and he really enjoys writing more and more code. And eventually the code works. It's valuable to the team. However, he's not very talkative. He doesn't really like to share his ideas. He doesn't really like to talk about how to do all the development process better. And from what I found out is that sometimes these people, they're just not sure about how valuable their contributions are. Because when you're dominant, when you're just pressing your work on everybody, you feel like, yeah, I'm king of the world, like people are taking it and they find it good, so I'm probably not doing it well. I'm probably doing it well. But people who are not dominant, they might feel something called imposter syndrome sometimes, where they feel that they don't really belong, that their work is not good enough for the rest of the team. And for these people, they will try to stay in the safe zone. They will try to do something that will not get them, put them in a wrong spotlight. For these kind of people, what you can do is actually let them see their value. When you show them that what they work on is valuable and how is it valuable to the team, they will start to gain the confidence. They will start to feel like, yeah, what I'm doing is actually contributing, so maybe I should be focusing on that. Maybe we can talk about how to do it better. There is one mistake that people do when they're trying to give such a positive feedback to these people, and that is to make it public, to make it, as great as possible. Because when you already are in position, when you are confident in your job, you want to share your success with others. You want others to celebrate you that, you're the best programmer, or you're the best team, or you've delivered the best project, and you want to do it publicly. But for that, you need to be aware where your value is. If you're not aware of that, this will only put you in the wrong spotlight. Because these people don't want any spotlight. They just want to, feel safe and do their work. So if you're not sure that the person will take even positive feedback well, what's great is to just do it in private, that there is no one else, that they can feel safe, like that there is no hidden camera, you're not running any pranks, you're just providing them some ideas that, yes, what you've done was really good, I'd like you to do it again. What might seem is that I'm talking as, what you might feel now is that I'm talking from the position of team leader, of somebody who's managing people, but this is something that you can do to your coworkers as well. This is not something that only managers should do. If actually your manager says, this is only what I do, I recommend you look for another manager actually. But in your team, think of something that your coworkers done last week, that they've done really well. And think about going to them and telling them, this was good. That's all that can be sufficient, that can make a difference. Once you have people's trust, once they start to listen to you, once they actually open up to some of the ideas from you, you can also give them some negative feedback, to give them something that they could do differently something that they can do differently next time. What feedback does to people is that it actually gives them a mirror to look at. Because when you're programming, you immediately see the results, or very shortly you see the results of your actions. That's how you can learn. But we adults learn not to make our emotions visible. We learn how to be rather private and not get fired at work, rather than telling you, I don't believe you, that's wrong, I think you're wrong. Hence, when we're working with others, we don't actually get the feedback. You're doing something risky, for example, sending an email to people, and you don't know how they're going to react. And actually, Claire, that is an example in the third story. She works in HR, and she sends many times she sends email to the company, what's happening, what's changing, and stuff. And she always adds the line that if there is anything wrong, like if you don't understand something, come talk to us. But this is at the bottom of the email. But at the top of the email, there is very authoritative language saying, this is how it is, this is how it's going to be. And when you read the email, you feel like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna mess this up, this is what they say, I'm not gonna, try. Even though at the bottom she says, yeah, you can talk to us. So clearly, she doesn't actually see how the beginning of the email, what effect it has on the people, and that the bottom line is absolutely ineffective. So what you can do is to provide the mirror. And what does mirror do? Well, mirror basically says, you were thinking that you're doing this, but it was actually doing something else. Now, usually when people provide feedback, they think that they always need to give advice, that they always need to tell them, yeah, this is the better way to do it. But actually, for the mirror, what's sufficient is to say, this is the effect it had on me. Because even this information becomes valuable to these people. So I actually walked to Claire and I told her, hi Claire, I really like the emails that you say, they are very concise, but the language that you're using makes me not believe that I can actually go to you and discuss it. I didn't have to tell her, how she should do it and that she's done it wrong. I just told her, and my emotion or my reaction to it was this. And since she had basically no other way of knowing it, she found it very valuable. And actually, she's working on making it, writing such emails better. There are 2 points to expect. First, people are going to argue with you. Then I recommend not to engage in an argument, but just try to express what you feel and let them decide whether they want to take the feedback into consideration or not. This is especially important if you're doing code reviews. Think about the way you're doing code reviews at work. Somebody writes some code, somebody else comments on that. That's the mirror for those people. But in many companies, there is a rule that you have to take care of every single command before the request can go through. But then you're not only providing the mirror, which would be helpful, but you're basically forcing them to do something for you. So I think a very important rule to do at code review was that you very much specify whether what you're saying is like, there is no other way that I'm gonna agree to this unless you change it, or it's just a point for improvement. It's your decision in the end whether you want to improve it or not. And I've seen many programmers doing horrible code reviews to random people that they didn't even know, because they basically says, like, why are you doing this? Like, this is stupid, you shouldn't be doing this. Instead of just saying, yet I don't like this, this will not work like this, and letting the other person decide what's good enough. Another great way to work with people is to actually help them work with their help them improve their skills. So you start with the trust so that you can actually talk with them openly about ideas that you have, and they will actually listen and try to consider it. You try to give them some information that they don't have about their performance, so give them a mirror to look into so that they can decide whether what they're doing is going in a good direction or not. But you can also make an extra step. If you have knowledge that they're lacking or skill, you can help them gain that knowledge from you. What happens every day at our work is that somebody is held back. That somebody, is basically banging their head towards the keyboard because they have a bug that they really don't know how it works, and they just need a fresh eyes to look into the code and say, yeah, it's here, and you're like, okay, we will never talk about this again. Now, if you do this to a computer will give you errors. They will give you warnings that this is not something that you probably want. But with people who are stuck, they will give you no warnings. They will just stare into the screen. with dead eyes and just saying either give me a coffee or don't talk to me. Now, they don't know they're stuck. You can recognize it from the outside by the look. So what you can do then? Well, you can help them get unstuck. You can walk to them and ask, hey, like, I think that you're stuck. Is there something wrong with you? Is there something wrong with the situation that you're solving? What's really great about programming is that we actually have a concept for this, which is called paired programming. 2 people, 1 keyboard, producing code. That's brilliant. Like, and in how many other works do you actually have this close cooperations when something goes wrong? However, if you try doing this, you should not go to the person and just say, yeah, look, show it to me what's wrong. Because you will be, they will not, accept your help unless they decide they wanted to. So what you can do is offer their help, ask them what's wrong, what's not working. Sometimes you find out that when they just talk about it, they will solve it for their own. Sit down, write the code for them, and then let them continue forward. Let them finish the task that they had, and they learn something from your new perspective. When you do this, when you get used to sitting next to people and showing him how to things done, there is a trap that you will probably fall into a couple of times. And that's that sometimes people don't actually learn from this. This is not the best way for them to learn. This is a really good way for them to get unstuck. But sometimes it will not help them actually face the next situation better. My story about this is about Amelia, who was in my previous job. She was working on some code that was using regular expressions. They can get really tricky, and she actually was lost. She even had her boyfriend on chat helping her figure out how it works and how to do it properly. So what we offered to her was like, yeah, I think it was either me or my friend. We would sit with her and solve the problem. When I was thinking about it in retrospect, I found out, well, she did finish the task, so that's good. But when she faces another regex problem, will she be able to solve it? Probably no. Unfortunately, the key construct in this is whether you talk to people to instruct them, that is, you sit down with them and you show them what to do, or if you talk with them to learn. Because that's completely different task. Suddenly, it may take way longer for the task to get finished, but what you gain is that not only will people trust you more because you provided them with some rare knowledge, but they will actually learn something that they can use the next time. So in retrospect, what we should have done was not to just sit down, but said, yeah, I think we will be making more of these regular expressions. What if we try to explain you how they work in general, and then give you some examples to write some regular expressions on your own, so that you actually know how to create them in the future. This is something that I'm sad about that we didn't know at the time, and that had we done it, the whole teamwork would start to work differently, because suddenly you have this other option. You just don't show people. There is also like, yeah, we will be writing a lot more code like this, so maybe we should think about how to teach people, how to let them learn. When you have people stuck, you will find out that it's really that sometimes they're not stuck because they don't know what's happening, but they're actually stuck because there is so many things on their mind. That there are so many thoughts flying around in their head that they don't know what to do next. They don't know what to grip and how to continue with that. My friend, Frank, we were out the other night, and he was talking to me that he's thinking about taking some other positions, and he was discussing about 3 of them, and that one is bad, and that another one is worse, and that third one he doesn't really think will be a change to him. And I found out, like, yeah, he has no idea how to think about these people, about these jobs. He has no way of comparing it. So I'll ask him, so what's the difference between those jobs? What distinguishes them? And when he answered that, I asked him, so these things that distinguish them, what's important to you? What's the thing that you want, and what's the thing that you don't want to do? To be honest, this is quite a hard thing to do, right? You already need to be able to listen to people. You already need to be able to understand them. But with asking open questions, questions that let people talk more rather than say yes or no. So instead of saying, so do you want this job or that job, I ask him, how would you differentiate between them so that he actually talks more. You give them the ability to look into their thoughts differently. This gives them a different perspective that can really help them make better decisions and move forward. The last one that I have has an interesting backstory. Yesterday I was at the Kiwi leadership meetup in Brno, and there were two people discussing how to, I think it was, whether you talk differently with people in startup or in corporation. And one of those people said that he had this really amazing course that was named Talking with Difficult People. And the subtitle was, that means everyone here is not you. And I found out that, we would like to help these other people in our team. We would like them to be more competent, to be more productive, to have a better relationship with them. But the place where we can actually start immediately, and that can get us even further than that, is unfortunately with ourselves. So the last story is about me. When I changed jobs in September, I was tasked with getting a team on track. I managed to do that in a couple of months, and then I found out, so now the team is productive, we have some good results. What's next? What should I do? So I actually got in touch with a coach who would ask me good open questions and figure out that what I wanted to change in my work was that not only to make the environment better for my team, but also help the environments of other teams that are within Phonexia and also outside. And that's one of the reasons why I'm standing here today in front of you, because that's something that I actually want to change. And if you think about your teams, is there something that you really like? Is there something that you really dislike? Is there something that you would really like to change? And when you start with these questions, this gives you pointers to what can I do next? And using the methods that I've described before, it can give you a tremendous success because you will not be bothered or rather, you will not feel bad for what's happening at work. You will be those people who are actually changing things, who are actually, changing the environment for themselves for the better. I have a couple of resources for you. First is that if you want more insights into how working with people works, I very much recommend Turn the Ship Around. Me personally, I'm working on the second project, which is called Bug-Free Teams. That's a website where I'm putting materials that enables engineers to actually work in teams better. And if you think that everything that I've told you in this talk that you already know and that you know this is a scientific name for that, I really recommend the last book, Tribal Leadership, that will actually push your teamwork skills to the next level. To give you some pointers for the next time, what can we do, each of us individually, tomorrow, we can start talk about the people that are around you, whom I don't trust, who is a bit too shy, who could benefit from some awareness, from some mirrors, who is being held back, who is missing some knowledge, who seems lost in their own thoughts, and what do I want to change in my workplace? Thank you.